welcome to Miss Rose's Story Time. We are on the last chapter of Carry On Mr. Bowditch by Jean Lee Latham, and we are on chapter 24, which is page 241. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you are enjoying this time out of the hustle and bustle, being able to cultivate your giftings and talents and to read and share with one another. Here we go. Man against the fog. Morning came, but no sunlight. The only way a man could know that day had come was because the fog turned pale. From amidship, a man could not see the bow. He could not even see the foremast. The lookouts strained to see what lay before them, and shook their heads in despair. "If anything's there," one muttered, "we'll find it when we hit it." 8 bells came. The starboard watch lay below. In the foresail, the men huddled and slewed sidelong glances at each other. When they spoke, they growled in low voices, as though the fog that showered them, the world, had muffled their words. Jensen came below from his trick at the wheel. "You know what the old man said to me?" The man looked up without speaking, without moving their heads. "He came alongside me and stood there watching the compass. He said, 'You have a steady hand on the wheel, Chad. Your wake is straight as a string.'" Corey's voice rose and cracked. "How does he know? Can't see our wake, can we? Can't see anything." Jensen nodded. "That's what I said to him. I said, 'Maybe, sir, if we could see it.' Know what he said to me? He said, 'We don't have to see it to know that, do we, Jensen? We just watch the compass and know. Simple matter of mathematics, isn't it?' And he went below again and cool as you please." Corey shook his head as a dog shakes when it comes out of the water. 3 days with no sun, no moon, no stars to tell us where we are." Jensen stopped smiling. "Getting thicker, too." He shook his head. "I'd as soon play blindsman bluff on a cliff as sail through this fog." Washington stared at the deck. "All right, maybe if we had sea room, but what do we know about where we are now?" Corey slumped forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands dangling. 3 days of zinging and zagging makes your muscles pull just thinking about it. How many times we've hauled around on another tack. Zig and zag and zig and zag. How can a body expect to know where we are? Jensen grinned wryly. "We've had plenty of practice most of the way home. Ought to be used to it, maybe." Corey's voice cracked again. "We had sea room then, sea room. But we were off Nantucket Scholars 10 days ago. Where are we now?" Jensen gripped Corey's shoulder. "Easy, lad. Maybe the fog will lift." But the fog did not lift. 8 bells bong, bong, and it was noon. The fog grew thicker, and around was a ghost world now. From forward, ghost voices of the leadsmen chanted the surroundings. From aft, ghost voices spoke as men heaved and logged and turned the glass. The wind freshened and blew in fitful gusts. Jensen said, "Good! It's below the fog away." It did not. It only blew more clouds of fog to roll and billow over Putnam. Along about 3 bells, Nate came on deck with his spyglass and went to the larboard rail. The word passed swiftly. "Something's up. The old man's taking charge." Mr. Denny stood at Nate's shoulder. "Impossible to see anything, isn't it, sir?" Nate answered without turning. "If the fog lifts 1/2 minute, we can see it." Mr. Denny stared into the fog, too. The minutes crawled by. The ghost bell marked the leaden-footed time. Bong, 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 bong. Mr. Denny shifted his feet and sighed. Nate was motionless. His glass never wavered from the point toward which he stared. The brief day began to darken. 8 bells again. The starboard watch was revealed. Watson said, "The old man's watching for something. Suppose it's the light of Baker's Island." Corey shouted, "Baker's Island? Are you crazy? Think we'd get close enough to Baker's Island to see the light in this fog? And fetch up on the rocks somewhere? You crazy fool. Ever seen a ship on Gale's Ledge? Or Wallace Back? Baker's Island light? You crazy fool." Judson gripped Corey's shoulder again. "Easy, lad. We got sea room. Ain't anywhere near Baker's Island." Though the white ghost whirled, they heard Nate's voice. "That's it, Mr. Denny. Baker's Island. We're exactly on our course." Judson gasped. Corey whimpered and muttered a prayer. Judson said, "We'll anchor now, lad. We'll stand off till fog lifts." Nate's voice spoke again through the fog. "2 men in the chains. Mr. Denny, keep heaving those leads." He moved briskly to the side of the helmsman. "West, northwest by west." "Aye, aye, sir. West, northwest by west. It is, sir." Night came again. Darkness and fog shrouded the Putnam. Nate stood near the compass, holding his watch so that he could read the face in the glow of the binnacle lamp. Watson in the larboard chains sang out, "By the deep 10." From the starboard chains, Kedzie yelled, "And a quarter less 4." The helmsman stared at the compass. His knuckles whitened on the wheel. Somewhere in the mist, Corey gasped, "It's solaring!" Nate Gaze never left his watch. He lifted one finger as though with one finger he could control the wind and the waves and hurled a ship, a crew, and 300 tons of cargo towards the waiting rocks. "Now, due west!" "Due west it is, sir." The minutes crawled. The ship bell bonged, bonged. Kedzie rumbled by the deep 6. In the foggy darkness, someone tried to laugh, and it sounded like a sob. Watson sang out, "And 6:30." Nate stared at his watch and lifted his finger again. Kedzie yelled, "By the deep 4." Nate said, "West by north." The helmsman swung the wheel hard, growled at himself, and steadied on the course. West by north it is, sir." No sound but the ship's bell now. Watson's sing-song came through the darkness. "By the Mark 5. And Kedzie rumbled answer, "By the Mark 5. Judson said, "The old man goes ahead like it was noonday. He—" Watson sing-song again. "And 5:30. Kedzie rumbled answer. "And 5:30. Watson's voice sharpened. "And 3:15. Nate gave no sign that he heard. He stared at his watch. Kenzie's voice again. "And 3:15. Nate said, "Steady as you go." Watson yelled, "And 3:30. Somewhere in the fog, Corey screamed, "It's solaring! I tell you, it's going aground! We'll be beaten to pieces!" Nate did not raise his eyes. He hardly lifted his voice to say, "Mr. Sanchez, it would be a kindness if Corey could sleep." There's a photo. Must be Polly. All right. It says Lem Harvey and Polly Bowditch. That's what it says. Lupe purred, "Aye, aye, sir." In the darkness, a fist thudded, a body hit the deck. Excuse me. Excuse me. A slurring scrape said someone was dragging the sleeping Corey forward. Nate lifted his finger again. Southwest by south. In the big white house facing the common, the tall clock struck 9. Polly rose from her place by the fire, went to the window, shaded her eyes from the light, and stared out into the mist. Lem Harvey looked up and shook his head. "It's no use, Mrs. Bowditch, ma'am. Won't be any ships make port tonight." Polly sighed and turned from the window. "I know, but I did hope he'd be home by Christmas Day." "Better pray now he don't come," Polly gasped. "Lem, what do you mean?" "Nothing, ma'am. Just that the only sailor that turned up in Salem tonight would come by land, because he'd been wrecked somewhere and put ashore." "Lem, what's happened? What are you keeping from me?" "Nothing, ma'am." "There's something," she insisted. "That's why you came tonight. What happened, Lem?" His black eyes met Polly's gaze squarely. I swear, ma'am, it's nothing like that. I just came because, well, I got to thinking about you. I knew the folks was away and you were alone in the house. I just got to thinking about you alone on Christmas night, ma'am. That's all. It's the only reason. I swear it is. You believe me, don't you, ma'am? Yes, Lem, I believe you. For a few minutes she sat by the fire, staring into the glow. Then she was at the window again, staring into the blank wall fog. Lem said, honest, Mrs. Bowditch. Polly turned from the window. I know, you're right, Lem. Of course you're right. She started back to her chair, stopped, whirled, and stood motionless, listening. I could swear I heard Lupe call out. If you did, ma'am, it was his ghost. This time Polly clutched his arm and shook it. Lem, what is it? You've got to tell me. Lem stood. Nothing, ma'am, only that the Putman ain't coming in. I mean, she ain't coming tonight. You got sense enough to know that, ma'am. There's some things a master just don't do, and bringing his ship into Salem Harbor in a fog like this is one, I tell you. Where are you going, ma'am? Polly didn't answer. She hurried into the hall, flung the big door wide, and stood there staring into the fog. From the fog, Nate's voice called, Polly, is that you? Nate! Oh, Nate, darling! He raced up the steps and had her in his arms. Oh, Polly, it's so good to be home. After a little, he chuckled. Good thing you opened the door, though. The fog's so thick I might have gone right past the house. Still chuckling, his arm around Polly, he closed the door and went by the fire. Why, Lem, how good to see you. At first, Lem didn't answer. He only stared, his jaws sagging. It's really you? What happened? Where's the Putman? Nate tossed off his jacket. Right down in Salem Harbor, riding to anchor. He stood by the fire, rubbing his hands. Why? You came in through this fog? Polly said. When it's so thick you almost missed the house? Nate shrugged. Oh, that's different. On the Putman I had log, lead, and lookout, he grinned. Not the lookout's been seen much, Lem growled. When did you last shoot the sun? About 3 days ago, Lem gulped. 3 days? 72 hours. And since then? It's simple mathematics, Lem. At such a speed, in so many hours, you log so many miles in a given direction. Yeah, Lem growled, 72 hours through the roaring 40s, 72 hours by dead reckoning, and then you enter Salem Harbor. Why, you begging your pardon, ma'am, for what I'm thinking. He slumped in a chair and stared at Nate. Nate winked at Polly. Have you any idea what's the matter with him? Polly's eyes danced. He just doesn't understand about you and mathematics, dear. 2 + 2 is 4. It comes out right, doesn't it? Lem shifted in his chair and growled under his breath. Hurrying footsteps thudded on the porch. A heavy fist hammered the door. Polly went to open it. Zach Selby entered, panting, talking as he came. I'm sorry about the bad news, ma'am. Someone said they saw him on the street. I'm sorry he lost the Putman, ma'am. Lem roared, come in and stop bellowing, you fool. The Putman's riding an anchor in Salem Harbor. Zach stared at Nate. You come in through the fog? How did you do it? Lem threw back his shoulders and bellowed. How do you think he did it? Book sailing. Simple matter of mathematics. He picked up his jacket and cape. I'd better explain things to folks, or you two won't get any rest tonight. Come along, Zach. The door slammed. Polly's lips quirked. Lem's going to have a wonderful time. She looked at Nate with glowing eyes. It's really you, Captain Bowditch. F.A.A. and A.M. I'm very proud of you. She blinked back, sudden tears. Oh, Nate, it's been so long. Nate's arms tightened around her. Somewhere out of the past a voice whispered, a long time to sail by ash breeze. Was it awfully hard? Polly asked. Not too bad, Nate told her. Rough weather sometimes, but I'll say this for it. I was never beclaimed. That's it. A little bit about the author. Jean Lee Latham was born in 1902 in Buckhannon, West Virginia. At an early age, she became a prolific writer, penning works of fiction and nonfiction, as well as theater scripts. A woman of many talents, she also pursued 3 other careers in fields of teaching, editing, and technical electronics. To prepare for writing this book, Ms. Latham studied mathematics, astronomy, oceanography, and sailing. She also traveled to Boston and Salem to talk with descendants of Nathaniel Bowditch and to research the geographical and maritime background of her story. Her meticulous hard work paid off ever since its debut. Carry On, Mr. Bowditch has acquired an intrigued group of sea-loving fans. I hope you enjoyed it. Please read 30 minutes every day. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much, and God bless you.